Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association, brought to you by Leadership Books. I'm Kenneth, Kinney, but friends call me Shark, and like you, I'm a professional speaker, and I love listening to Speakernomics. Speakernomics is a professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow a speaking business so you too can change the world, one keynote session, workshop, and speech at a time. And on this episode, we welcome David Avrin. David is a CSP, a global speaking fellow in his 25th year as a professional speaker and consultant who has shared his customer experience content with clients and audiences in 26 countries around the world. He's an author with 6 books published in several languages. David, welcome to Speakernomics. How are you today?
I am great. There is no better use of any of our times than to it's sharing and collaborating with our colleagues in the speaking world. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, to all of my speaking friends, what does it really take to thrive in the speaking industry? That's the conventional wisdom. And then there's the truth. Is speaking itself the business, or is it merely the product? And before we jump in, make sure to go to speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. David, let's dive in. So you talk about speaking not being a business, getting the gig is the business. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I speak about is customer experience. I mean, my real work is I travel around the world, is helping organizations become ridiculously easy to do business with. I mean, I spent early part of my career in marketing. I've made that transition to customer experience, and it rejuvenated my interest, my enthusiasm, my career. And so that's the business part of what I do. What I'm excited about, and my opportunity to present main stage for my friends and my colleagues in the National Speaker Association at Influence this year, is exactly what you said, which is talking about the speaking business. And I've been very fortunate to present for 9 of the international speaker organizations, 3 of them twice, and the Global Federation as well. But when I do, I don't talk about my normal subject. I talk about what I'm really passionate about from a professional perspective, which is how do we as speakers build our business? How do we feed our families? I mean, my real passion is feeding my family. I have five colleges I'm paying for, 5, and for our international friends, 5 American universities that we don't get for free. So I get my butt to my office every day and I work. And so, as you had mentioned before, one of my mantras is reminding our colleagues that speaking is not a business. Getting the gig is the business. Speaking is the presentation, it's the performance. We love to present. We love to impact people's lives and help organizations and grow businesses. But the business is getting the gig. And I think as an industry, as a community, I don't think we've done a very good job of helping each other feed our families. And so when I had discussions with the powers that be and was very honored and gratified that they invited me to present on the stage this year, I told them I don't want to talk about customer experience. I don't want to talk about my normal subject. I want to help our friends and our colleagues, our family, our speaker family, build their businesses and feed their families. And so my session and everything I'm going to do, and also in a breakout session afterwards, is all about the business of professional speaking.
So at a high level, how should people go about doing that?
Well, I think we know that we need to look at it as a business, but I think the approach and I think the advice, how do I say this nicely? I think the advice oftentimes is terrible. We have a really interesting profession. Arguably, we have the only profession where most people get into this profession because they're encouraged by somebody who has no idea what this business is. Like, oh my God, you should be a professional speaker. It's like, you tell such great stories, or like when you guys went up that mountain and the way you saved Kinney from that crevasse and you could impact people's lives. You should be a professional speaker. And perhaps that's true, but that has nothing to do with what we get paid about, or what we get paid for, what we get hired for. There's so much nonsense, and everybody's not going to be happy. It's going to be a tough conversation, because the things that we're encouraged to do, that we're celebrated for, has nothing to do with what we're actually hired and paid for. We get a lot of conversation, a lot of encouragement to speak our truth. I've yet to hear of any organization that wrote a check for somebody for speaking their truth. They write checks for us to solve their problems. We're encouraged to speak our truth, to step into our power, and the nonsense, the utter nonsense of making a difference in the life of just one person. You would be fired from any job in America if you made a difference in the life of one person. But we celebrate that week and we clap for that and we encourage that. And meanwhile, our colleagues are starving. And I'm just going to say it out loud. Most speakers leave this profession within a couple of years, most. And I would submit, Shark, that the majority of them are wonderful people, brilliant teachers, passionate messengers, and they starve because they're not booking speaking gigs. I get people all the time saying, I took a 4-day workshop on hand gestures and I can't get the phone to ring. Give me a break. But now understand this comes from love. And so we're going to have tough love conversation because I know we can help more. We can talk about what it really takes, what meeting planners, what industry professionals, bureaus, organizations who are looking for speakers to solve their problems, what they're really looking for, what it takes to actually compete and win for that gig. Because we can't sit back and wait for it. We don't. We have a whole process, and we're going to talk about what that is, how we do it. But the biggest challenge, I think, in our industry is longevity. To be a speaker over the long term, and I'm coming up on a quarter of a century, it's hard, and it takes reinvention, but it also takes marketing, and it also takes presenting to the marketplace what meeting planners are looking for. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll do it with some humor. We'll do it with humility. But my session is all about helping our friends, our colleagues, our speaker family book more paid speaking gigs and feed their families.
So when you think about the ones that actually hire us a lot, the meeting planners who engage with you, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that you often see people do in their marketing? You've got the background and you know now from listening directly to this audience, what do you think those mistakes are that speakers fall into all the time?
Sure. Number one is either looking antiquated, looking a little bit outdated, or just having a lack of the kinds of evaluative material that meeting planners need, right? They need to be able to watch you do what you do, right? The meeting planner is one of the hardest jobs, very demanding, and they're very risk averse. If they can't see you doing what you do in a compelling video, demo reel, sizzle reel, whatever you want to call it, you're a risk. And they don't have to take the risk because there's so many other speakers that are great. I mean, our colleagues are great. And so that's one part of it, is not having the right kinds of materials that show them in a positive light that makes them a safe choice to put on their stage. And the other part is a lack of clarity in terms of the tangible benefit, the problem that they solve. There's a lot of people who tell their stories of the affliction they overcame, the race that they won, the mountain that they climbed, and all of that's great. I mean, it's legitimate. We have wonderful colleagues in all of those categories, but there has to be clarity in terms of what the audience is going to get. What are you imparting? What problem are you solving? As many people have said, the stage is not your therapy. It's not for you to exercise your demons because if you went through with your bad childhood or the disease that you overcame. Once again, not mocking. I mean, I have great admiration for people who went through that. The problem is so many of them fail to connect their story, their heroism of what they overcame, which is incredibly admirable, incredibly valid. But if they haven't connected it to a problem that the organization is looking to pay to solve, then they're not going to be in the running. And so I think most people who get into this profession have a real potential of making a decent living, but a precious few effectively check all of the boxes from a marketing perspective, from a demonstration perspective, from a problem-solving perspective, that they become a safe choice for meeting planners. And because they're not making a decision in a vacuum, they're not deciding, should we hire Shark to come and present? We're saying we've got a 3-day conference. We're going to hire 3 keynoters. We know we're probably going to have sales. We're going to probably be a futurist. We've got one other one that might be available, whatever that might. And you're competing against every other potential problem solver, professional speaker and others to occupy that slot. And so there's no such thing as a no-brainer, but you can certainly make sure that you don't hand them reasons to not hire you.
And I'm going to lean back into, I just watched your demo reel the other day, and it's a 6-minute video. And if you went with a lot of advice, they probably tell you do it shorter. But what I loved about it was 6 minutes of you speaking the whole time.
Sorry, somehow something else started playing on the screen.
That's okay. I'll edit that out.
Don't edit that out.
Okay. I won't edit it out.
For all our speakers listening,
it was 6 minutes of you speaking on stage.
Yes.
So people were seeing you. I mean, that's something that over and over again, you have to remind people of that in a speaker demo reel. They think about all the pageantry and the packaging and everything else, except for the part where they're actually talking into some form of a microphone on a stage.
Well, let me address that, because I have a lot of elements and I'm very intentional about my preview video, and understand, because I've done this for 24 years, this is probably my 19th version of my video, because it's a living document. It always improves or whatever. It depends on what new clips I have. But it's also very strategic to make sure that I showed logos of other companies I've worked for, examples of the international cities where I've spoken all over the world, and the books that I've written. But the whole idea of the length of it is it's a little bit of maybe contrary to conventional wisdom. And the reality is, here's my contention is, people can turn the video off whenever they want. But why should you artificially penalize those who are having a great time and want to watch more? So having a 6-minute video, I've had 9-minute videos in the past, and I've had 4-minute videos. But right now, the content that I want to provide takes about 6 minutes. But if somebody looks at it for 2 minutes or 1 minute or 3 minutes and they see what they need to see, great. I front load it with everything they need to see to make a decision to hire me. But if they're still watching, then I'm going to show them some good funny clips. I'm going to show them some great testimonials. I am going to do a montage of me speaking and working with individuals around the world. So I think, once again, we get hung up on conventional wisdom and pop psychology, and we use that as an excuse to not move forward. There's somebody came up to me after a presentation. I was signing books, and I could see he was kind of hovering off to the side. And he wanted to say, and I just waved him over, come on over, come talk. And he says to me after everybody's done, I'm signing books, and he says, are you open to some feedback? And immediately I know he's a Toastmaster, because that's one of the things that they do, no criticism. And I said, sure. And he says, when you put your hand in your pocket, you lose your power. And I said, I don't know what that means. He says, no, you lose your power. I said, I don't think I do. And I'm realizing it's just, there are no hard and fast rules. And he says, if you want to make 2 different points, you got to start on one side of the stage and make a point, and then go to the other side, because then they'll get it. And I said, I think they get it. And the reality is, once again, there's so many of these conventional wisdom and rules. And great speakers are teachers. They're authentic. I put my hand in my pocket sometimes because I want to put my hand in my pocket. And as a profession, I think we get hung up on some of the nonsense, some of the pop psychology. Women are mercilessly criticized by others for what they wear on stage. Audiences don't care. They care if you're good. They care if you have something to say. They care if you kept their attention and they're smiling. But we spend so much time on hand gestures. And yeah, I mean, granted, there's some things that are true in terms of things that might be distracting. But the reality is, I think if we spend a little more time as a community helping each other feed our families, and less time worrying about the minutia, because and not that it's unimportant, like community is incredibly important. Our association thrives on community. I have not missed an influence, a summer conference in 24 years because I value the community. My children grew up in the youth program because we value the community. But Marc LeBlanc famously said in New York at his year as president, he got on stage and he said, we're not the National Make Money in Your Underwear Association. We're not the National Podcasters Association, or we're the National Speakers Association. And we join and we stay for 2 reasons. And this is so seared in my mind. He says, for 2 reasons: to speak more and to speak better. And I think if we accomplish that, I think we grow. the other parts are important elements, but not in lieu of helping each other build the speaking business. So I'm giving a sense of it now. I'll give much more specifics on stage and in the breakout session afterwards, in terms of how we find contacts and turn them into leads and convert those leads into prospects and prospects into paying gigs. And we don't automate anything, but I'm going to teach exactly how we do it because there's enough work for everyone. I think I heard some statistic, and don't check this because this is going to be wrong, but there's like 600 conferences that are going on every day in Las Vegas. Every day. There's enough work for everyone. There's no reason that our colleagues should be starving or leaving our profession. And my intention is in my session at Influence is that we're going to call out some nonsense, and we're going to talk about what it really takes for us to help each other, support each other in a way that actually feeds our families.
Well, you know this obviously from also working in marketing and customer experiences, that so much of the marketing advice that's out there will put businesses out of business pretty quickly. Yeah. And and a lot of that same stuff comes over to speaking. And I was the first, in my little marketing world, when it came over here, I was like, no, this is BS. This is complete BS. And it's getting preached all over again. And people are waiting for the phone to ring and it doesn't happen. And it's an unfortunate, but that's why they got to go to Influence and hear you talk about this a little bit more. So give us at least one tip on what you're doing to get the gig as part of your business. And then also, at what point did you make this shift with thinking about it, where getting the gig was a business? I'd love to know kind of what that aha moment.
Great. I'm going to actually answer that one first, because that's a great question. And this transformed my speaking business. And it was because of a colleague. So 15 years ago, I was at Influence, and I don't remember what we called it then, but it was the summer conference. And I remember we were sitting out by the pool on a Sunday night. And it was likely Phoenix, because that's where we do it. It was warm. And I was with some of my buddies and speaker colleagues, and I was talking about my business. I think my book, Why Customers Leave. Oh, no, my book, It's Not Who You Know, It's Who Knows You, had just come out. And I was talking about my speaking business. And Dave Horsager, CSP, CPAE, said to me in a loving but firm way, he said, dude, you don't have a business. And I said, what do you mean? I said, this is like my best year ever. He said, no, you have gigs. And I said, what's the difference? He said, here's the difference. How much are you going to make next year? And I said, I have no idea. He said, of course you don't, because you have no process in place. How are you finding prospects and contacts? And how are you reaching out and converting them and nurturing those? He says, you are so headed for a fall. He says, I know speakers who made 7 figures who couldn't pay their mortgage 2 years later, because you fool yourself into thinking that because you're hot now that the phone will keep ringing. And he says, you're so headed for a fall. And I went back to my hotel room and I did not sleep. And I went home and I had a good conversation with my wife about what we need to do to really invest in building systems and process and get an assistant to help me do the things, because we didn't have Wi-Fi on airplanes back then, right? And all speakers know we used to get on an airplane and our business closed until we came back. And so I spent a year putting all of that in place, CRM systems. And to be clear, it wasn't about automation. It was about how are we reaching out? What does that first letter look like? What happens if they don't respond? And so that transformed my business. And I give Dave Horsager credit for that. And that was 15 years ago. And we have ridden that wave. And so back to your question, what's the number one tip? The number one tip is create a replicable process for what you do in your office every day. And for us, we have specific days that we're following up, specific days that we're pitching. I went from no staff to 1 staff, and now we've got 3. Actually, we have 4. Just hired another one yesterday. But what we do is very intentional. We find prospects. We send a pitch letter. I'm not a celebrity speaker. I'm good at what I do. There's a lot of us in this business who are good at what we do. And so I can't rely on infamy or fame to make the phone ring. So half the presentations I do are to organizations who had no idea who I was until we reached out to them. So I know it's a long answer to a short question.
No, it's great.
The number one thing is put systems in place, a CRM system. Who are we reaching out to? When are we doing it? How are we following up? And if you have a desk full of Post-it notepads, 1987 is calling and they want their pager back. Yeah. And we're going to talk about all of this. We're going to talk about how we do all of it. And I'm going to share all of it because I love that line that says, for those of us who have enjoyed a measure of success, it's important that we send the elevator back down. And others did that for me as well. And I look at the people in this business and Eric Chester, who is my Cabot, who brought me into this business and who encouraged me and taught me. And now, first, inexplicably, I'm an old guy. And so now we do it for others. And hopefully some of those will do it 10, 20 years as well.
25 years ago, Cigar Peg started as a spark, an idea to combine networking with philanthropy. Today, we stand proud as a beacon of inspiration, having raised over $865,000 for charities. Join us as we toast our 25th anniversary. Experience the power of connection, the joy of giving, and the strength of community. Visit us at cigarpeg.com/join.
Well, David, I've got a question I want to ask you from a previous guest.
Sure.
What brings you the joy that is going to sustain a long run in this profession, the speaking business?
Money to feed my family. All right, there's one answer. Boy, does that sound flippant and it sounds capitalistic, doesn't it? People talk about this being their passion. And the reality is, this is my business. My family is my passion. I love speaking. I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. I'm a teacher at heart. I've been on stage my whole life, whether it was music before, and theater I did in high school. My passion is my family. I adore my family. My children who are no longer children, my amazing wife, my cat who gives me far less problems than my kids do. I love paying my mortgage. I love my Jeep. That's my passion. Speaking is my business. I'm passionate about my business, but I do it to afford myself the life that I have. And so for me, the sustainability comes from recognizing the hard work it takes to have the life that I want. And the minute I let up on the gas, then that life is diminished or is in jeopardy. And so for everybody who gets up in every profession to go to work and earn a paycheck, it's to afford the kind of life that they want. And I'm the guy who was very fortunate. I was able to be at all my kids' parent-teacher conferences. And when my middle daughter played high school varsity basketball, I missed 2 games in 2 years. And I turned down business to do it because that was my priority. But I was able to do it because of this wonderful profession that we have.
Yeah. Not a flippant answer at all, especially when it's for the right reason.
Yeah.
All right, well, David, what is a question that you would like to ask a future guest on this show?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, for a future guest, my question would be, because it's a business podcast, when you go to work every day, and hopefully you're going to work at least during the week, and you sit down at your desk, what's the one thing that you want to make sure that you accomplish in that day before you allow yourself to turn off your computer and go home or go upstairs? What's the one thing that you know, if I do this today, then I will have moved my business forward?
That's a great answer. All right, let's do a quick recap based on David Avrin's amazing advice. Number one, as a community, we should help each other learn to get more business. We don't get paid to speak our truth and step into our power. We get paid to fix someone else's problems. Number two, a little bit of marketing advice. And I love this because you don't want your marketing to look antiquated. I can't tell you how many people I know that if you go look at their stuff, it looks like it's from the early 90s. Make sure that they see what you do and make sure that you add clarity. And one other follow-up he had to this was make sure it's not about you, it's about them. Number three, create a replicable process that you can use in your office every day. Put systems in place. Be intentional about this business. David, I can't wait to see it at Influence in Denver. Any last closing thoughts before we get out of here?
The only closing thought is if you're on the fence, register for this conference. I'm dead serious. Community is great. I don't think community is sufficient to justify taking the time or the expense. And some may get mad at me. I think we have to be there because of what we're going to learn to build our business. And I look at the roster of the other speakers as well. We want to go there because of the community, because we don't work in office buildings full of professional speakers. It's a lonely business. We speak for 1,000 people, and then we're by ourselves for the next week and traveling. But you need to go to Influence, and you need to go there selfishly. You need to go there and saying, I invested in this. I'm going to learn. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to implement. I'm going to go to sessions that are relevant to my business, to the deficiencies that I need to backfill, and not just because my friend is presenting. I think we need to go there with an intention. And of course, in the evenings, we have a drink and we have dinner and we love being with our friends, but drink up the content with a spoon, with a sponge. Register for this conference. I promise you. And all I know is I can control what I do. I'm going to help you build your business. I'm going to help you earn money and feed your family. And then when you see me, give me a hug, because that's what we do.
There you go. Well, they got to buy a ticket to Influence, but you got to buy a pen and a notepad, because if you're like me, you're going to take a ton of notes when David speaks. And this is exactly.
I think they're going to give them to you for free. I think they're.
Well, that's true. I just want to encourage. I'm trying to help the big people make some money. But this is also the kind of content that you hear people over and over want to see more of. And so I love that you're addressing this. And I
got to say, I got to give credit to the leaders at NSA. Is that they are very intentional. In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of deep conversations to make sure that they're providing great value, and I think they're hitting it out of the park. I think Jamie Nolan and her professional team, I think Meredith Elliott Powell and their volunteer board team are knocking it out of the park, and I think we owe them a huge thanks for the work that they do. And what they have curated this year for Influence, I think it's going to be one of the best ever.
Looking forward to it. Well, friends, make sure to join us at Speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. Thank you to Leadership Books for sponsoring this episode. I'm Kenneth Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics. And this has been another fantastic episode of the show. To everyone listening, thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.